We are back, guys. You'll notice that it's not Janelle over there on the other side of the screen. She was
You never know
unavailable.
with Facebook.
Yeah, she was unavailable for today. She's got a bunch of stuff going on, but this is a guy who you may see. And I'm kind of foreshadowing a little bit in some of my tournament videos coming up soon if he actually signs up, because I've been trying to get him to sign up for 2 years now. But if you guys follow me, if you've seen honestly a lot of Facebook posts. This guy posts on 802 fishing page a lot and brags about the smallmouth that he catches, and I wanted to bring him on and talk fishing a little bit. He's also going to be filling in as a co-host throughout the year. Probably, I would say the second most. I don't know how to word this, but probably the person I talked to the second most throughout the season about like just, hey, how the fish biting there? What are you catching on? Hey, I'm going to
Yep.
this lake. Have you fished it? There's a lot of like commentary back and forth, and I figured we might as well just bring this on the internet and start sharing it with everybody else, because to be honest, a lot of our conversations would be really good quality content for everybody to watch. So
Absolutely. First off, thanks for having me on, and I just want to give a big shout out to your boy there, Mikey, for getting his 100,000 subscribers. That's pretty sweet.
dude, that was awesome.
Yeah, it was. He's all excited.
I've been talking to him. It's funny because I was texting him like a week before, and I was just about to get him on the channel again.
Yep.
But dude, I don't know if you've seen, he's been on like a podcast like run. I think he's on Bailey's tomorrow.
Oh man.
But he's been on like 4 or 5 podcasts in the last like week. I think he's just kind of running the he's down in Florida too, so he's
Yep.
doing like he's actually fishing. So
Yeah, it was checking his videos out. Like this past week, I've just been kind of like, so every week or so, I'll pick like a certain individual or group that I'll watch, just like
yep.
Sixth Sense Fishing, um, Tactical Basson's one of my favorite, Mikey, uh, and I'll just pick those guys and I'll just go through like all the videos that they post, and I like watching this stuff because obviously love fishing. Everybody loves fishing, but it's pretty neat to see everybody's perspective, especially when in regards to like their regions and stuff. Because
Yep.
I don't know how many people are going to be coming up around this area in August, but we got the Bassmaster kayak series coming up in August. I'll be going on that, and it's just cool because you get to see everybody, like how everyone fishes on their home bodies and stuff. Was it Fishing with Norby? I watch his stuff religiously because obviously he fishes on Gunnersville all the time. The same with Mikey.
Yep.
And I see what works there, what doesn't, different areas that they fish, how they approach it, and stuff like that. And I think it helps prepare myself for going into those fishing areas later on in my career.
Yep.
So,
what's crazy though too is you got to be careful. I will have to say,
mm-hmm.
Tactical Bassin is a perfect example. Those guys are really informational, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to take into account where they're fishing.
Yep,
Because
exactly.
you will hear them say, it's April, you need to be using a shad pattern. Well, guess what, guys? And
Yep.
y'all have heard this 100 times. We don't fucking have those. So shad pattern, yes, it works because bass are going to eat something that looks like a fish. At the end of the day, sometimes pattern doesn't matter. But when you're trying to do a match the hatch type deal, shad's not our hatch, guys.
Nope.
Unless you're on Champlain, shad colors really aren't going to be all that beneficial for you in a small pond in Vermont. You're better off with bluegill perch.
Bluegill, perch, fall fish has actually been a big one for me.
True.
Up here in like the Northeast Kingdom, fall fish have been really big. Yeah. Crawfish patterns are probably really prevalent, especially if you're working like a reservoir or something like that.
Dude, I caught like a 12-inch fall fish on rescue. I had no idea what that thing was. Like, what is this?
Yeah, it's a giant shiner is basically what it is. But so my wife actually, I was able to get her on some really good bites, and she ended up pulling up two citation fall fish
Nice.
within an hour of each other. Um, so of course, one of my favorite places to go, and I have no problem saying it's Pensioner Pond.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many amazing fish in there. It's just you wouldn't think it when you drive by it because it
Yep.
just seems so small, but it's just so full of bait fish, and there's crayfish along the shallows. I mean, there's catfish. So it's well balanced, and it's a fantastic ecosystem. And I guess it's probably best that there aren't any largemouth in there because I feel like they'd probably wreck it. So the amount of smallmouth and the size of the smallmouth that are in there is pretty epic for a pond of its size.
There's, it's funny is I had this theory in my head for a while that I was moving south. I wanted to be able to fish all year, but
Right.
my buddy bear fishing ruined that for me. And the reason he ruined that for me is he made a very valid point. Where I live, there is not like I'm going to give away juice. I have Lake Bombazine 25 minutes from my house.
Oh, you lucked out.
I have St. Catherine 45 minutes from my house. Crown Point, New York's half an hour from my house.
Oh,
Like I am near some quality fishing.
yeah,
And
you are.
Vermont has one thing that I really wish more people would take note of is Vermont has a lot of pensioner pond type ponds
Mm-hmm.
that have monsters.
Uh-huh. I
Like
mean,
just
you've seen.
7 pounders and like quality smallmouth and these
Yep.
huge fish, and no one fishes it because they don't think that there's anything in there. So you
But,
get a lot of these like places that are just like one of the places I'm not afraid to give it up either is Kent Pond.
yep.
Is another one of those places that
I've
like
heard of that one.
it's loaded with bass, but no one fishes it for bass. Everybody fishes it for rainbows
Yeah.
because they stock it with rainbows, and they're
Mm-hmm.
all out there trying to catch the trout, which is cool. But what happens is the bass get neglected, and
Mm.
guys like me abuse that
Yeah.
because those bass are stupid. They're not educated. Like there are certain lakes, Bombazine's a perfect example. And actually, the lake, and I'm not going to say the name, the lake that you catch a lot of your smallmouth out of the big ones,
Yep.
that one gets abused too. And the pressure creates these fish not, you can't go in there with a Senko. You can't go in there with a Ned. By August, those baits start to drop off a little bit because they've seen 20,000 of them.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can. You're just not going to get the quality of fish. Like
You've got
you
to
have
work
to think
harder.
outside the box.
Yep.
Like this year. So this year I've been investing heavily in going bigger. So throwing bigger glide baits, soft baits. I mean, I just got a bunch of the new the dangerous swim baits.
I didn't like it.
Uh, what's that?
I didn't like it.
You didn't like them?
I didn't like it.
No, I haven't tried them yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I did get a couple of 6-inch trace. Let's see, I got the Bait Sanity, not the Explorer. Oh, the Chimera Shad. Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with the mag draft.
especially that perch, dude, around here.
Oh yeah. So
I'm
it's
kind
funny
of
thing you say something about perch. So I was on one of my ponds, and I love it because it's another one of those diverse ponds, but it has a nice mix of small and largemouth.
Yep.
Well, anyways, on the back side of it, it gets about 2.5, like a foot and a half, 2 foot deep. And this past summer, I was just cruising down there because I was following some smaller bait fish, and I noticed that they were perch. And then I saw this school. It was probably, I don't know, 40 or 50 fry, and they were probably about 2-3 inches long. and they were slowly being herded by this like 17-inch smallmouth.
Yep.
And he's probably 2-3 feet away from them, but he had his eyes on them and was just herding them into this little cove. And I'm like, oh, okay, so here we go. Because I tossed some finesse swim jig in perch color and started throwing that, and sure as can be, they were just all over it.
I will say that trace is a sneaky spring like spawn. You get that in like a bluegill or a perch color. They have
Yep.
the what is it, the 4K bluegill color and the
Yeah.
bluegill spawn. And you
Yep.
take those and just kind of going right into the topic that we were going to talk about.
Yep.
Ice out, you take the little trace, not the
Yep.
fucking big one. The little one is
Yep.
fine. And you take that thing and you just slow roll it in shallow water.
Mm-hmm.
That will get devastated. Now, I will say, fish that thing that time of year, fish that thing on 50-pound braid, because you're also going to get those pike that are still shallow that are going to come pound that thing too. And you don't want to use your thinner fluoro because you won't get that bait back and it's not a cheap one.
Yep.
But that trace is that thing last spring. I can't wait to get it out because I got it late last year. Kind of got into it because I liked the way it looked in the water. But
Yeah.
dude, I caught, like, there was a point where I was catching a bass on every single cast.
Mm-hmm.
And to 6 Cents credit, that trace is literally the bait that ended up in the lake. And I told you that story, but like literally, I went pre-fishing for a tournament, lost my rod out of my horizontal rod holder, found it 3 weeks later at the tournament. That
Yeah. I
rod had
remember
been
that one.
sitting in the lake for 3 weeks with that bait on the bait keeper. Hooks were fine, no rust, no issue with the components. The joints were fine. It swam fine. I caught fish on it that day. So if you want to give a testament to a bait being good components, leave it in a mud-filled lake for 3 weeks and then go get it, and it's fine.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, you can't do that with a Strike King.
Yep. I know.
But
I've been switching over a lot of my components, and actually my entire rod lineup. I actually janked my Megabass and switched out to 6 Cents. I went with the ESP line to start with,
yep.
and I fell in love with their 7.9 medium moderate, like best crankbait rod that I've ever used. And
Yep.
that's even out of using like glass rods and stuff. So
If I wasn't with FX, I'd be using
yeah,
6 Cents stuff.
yeah, I know. I've been chomping at the bit, hoping 6 Cents is going to like open up their sponsors, but they're pretty tight lipped about it, and they've only got a few people out there, which kind of blows my mind. But
Well,
so
I mean, to be fair, if you're going to use content creators to promote it, it's kind of hard to beat the part owner YouTube creator that's already making content with it anyways.
yep.
But yeah, dude, so the one question I wanted to ask you, because I was actually thinking about, like, because so guys, we actually have kind of a loose topic for today. For those of you who are in the Northeast, you know that we're in what I like to call the sad times.
Yes.
So we are in the window where, and I'm actually sick right now, so I could theoretically ice fish this weekend. But we have gotten so much rain and so much warm weather that there's enough standing water on top of the ice that it looks like there's not ice there.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
And that's going to freeze. It is going to freeze the next couple of days, but it's going to be iffy at best. And I am not really, I'm a wimp, I guess. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, cautious wimp, whatever. I'm not willing to risk going through and taking a winter swimming session
Yeah,
for
no, I
some
don't
for
blame you.
some pike. Like, it's
Yep.
just not, it just doesn't interest me as much. I love making content, and I've actually had a lot of fun making ice fishing content this year.
Yep. Yep.
But I'm gonna give you guys a little juice here. And I sent a text message to this guy next to me. I got a cool little toy in the mail today. It's called an Eagle Eye 9 forward facing sonar. I got a brand new kayak that's sitting in my dad's garage that needs to be rigged. And I'm sitting here like chomping at the bit to get that thing on the water. I don't even really expect to like really catch anything right off. Because the first, let's ask this first question actually, and then I'll ask the second question. Is it just me, or is the first two kayak sends of the year always an epic fucking disaster and you always forget something? Something's not rigged right. Like I always feel like it
Yes.
takes me 3 times as long to get the kayak into the water. It takes me longer to just get everything organized. Like it's just like I think it's just because I'm so out of the routine
Yeah.
that it's awful.
Yeah. It. Hang on a second.
Wolf
Yeah.
of Walmart. This is actually a Halo shirt, but it does kind of look like something's holding on to my titties when I wear this hoodie.
No, it's definitely. It probably takes me the first 4 or 5 trips of figuring out where I want things to be. So my rig, I have all those awesome little track packs on my rig,
Yep.
and I have certain ways that I like having them. So on the side on my left side because it's the easiest for me to reach. I have my chatterbaits and my lipless cranks. But anyways, yeah, it usually takes me about 4 or 5 outings to get everything set basically how I want it for the season.
You know what's funny is it's the coolest thing about kayak fishing. I have an 18-foot bass tracker right out there. It's been down for 2 years. Motor issues, problems with it. Should I fix it? Yes. Do I pay monthly on a loan payment for something that's basically a glorified lawn ornament right now? Yes. The reason why I was willing to drop, let's just say, a significant amount of money on a pretty green kayak that's sitting in my dad's garage right now, instead of taking that money to fix my boat, is that, in my opinion, the kayak, first of all, ice out, I could take that kayak on the first pond that opens up. And with thermal mass and getting into science of it, guys, the weird thing about it is the big lakes take forever to thaw. Forever. But
Yes.
there is some small ponds like the one he was talking about that Monday it's frozen and Friday it's open. It's just it happens. I don't know where it goes to or why it hits certain temperature, but the way the thermocline is and the way the water is, the bigger the body of water, the longer it takes for that ice to go away. And I'm
Yep.
not putting my bass boat in a 60-acre pond. It's not worth my time. But I can put my kayak in there. And the cool thing about, like you were saying, is I have yet to get through a season without doing a complete re-rig on my kayak at least 4 or 5 times.
Yes.
Minimum. And it's not, sometimes it's a subtle change.
Mm-hmm.
I add a rod holder in a different spot, or I store my baits differently. It's little things, but it's like every single time you end up like just doing this little tweak here, little tweak there, and you get it dialed in.
Yep.
And then by the end of the season, you've got a completely different arrangement than you had at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I had a tough lesson to learn back in the end of 2023 about rigging how to rig out my kayak. So I have the black packs, 16 by 16, so I can stick 4 rods on each side or rod holders on each side. It's good to have that many rods, but the problem is they get really cramped. And when you go back to reach for one, you run the risk of hooking one of your other rods with the reel
Yep.
handle
Yep.
and sending it into the deep and not realizing it.
I almost javelin through one of my rods one time because I went back with a swim jig and casted it.
Yep, yep, yep. But yeah, no, I lost. It was a $1,200 setup, and I'm like, no. That was one reason why I decided to get rid of my Megabass. I got to the point where I just couldn't justify only having like a 1 year um, warranty on it and then after that you're paying half price. And I'm like, man, for half price is $250 on my P5s. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that anymore, especially when I can get a quality rod at less than $200 with the 6 cents.
Yep.
And I also was getting sick and tired of the cork handles. I mean, cork's not bad if you have high quality cork, but Megabass is not known for high quality cork. And you take it out a couple of times and it starts falling out. And even if you use the U40 and seal it, it's still going to fall out.
Does 6 cents use wind grips, or do they use like the EVA?
So they have some of their lines, like the Lux, have EVA, and then other ones like the ESP has like the composite shaft. So it's a lot like the monocoque handles, like the X Prides.
Yeah.
So, and I really like that just because of how sensitive it is. It blew my mind how much more sensitivity I had, especially on a crankbait rod. You're just reeling, and I can tell when a fish has it before I actually even feel the strike, because the line is like, okay, the line just went slack and I felt it through the rod.
What's funny is the longer I've been with, so like little details like that, like FX, they don't pad under their grips.
Yep.
So their grip is glued right to the blank. So the blank runs into the handle, and then the wind grip is attached directly to the blank.
Yep.
It sounds like, oh, well, that doesn't make that much of a difference. I will tell you, and going back to our theme of this video, the one thing about the spring is those bass, they don't freight train it like they do in July. They kind of suck it in. They kind of barely hit it. They'll fight a little bit more, but when that water is so cold still in the springtime, they're very, very subtle. So when you fish with a more sensitive rod, you have a quality rod, you feel that subtle, oh, that wasn't grass. That wasn't a rock that I hit. That felt like a bite. And you feel that in your finger. And that's what's the difference, I think, with just in general, I think having a better rod. I will say, I am not a guy that's going to say you need to go out and buy freaking $500 rods. I don't recommend buying $500 rods, because at the end of the day, you could have bought 3 or 4. I think you'd be better off buying 2 or 3 $150 to $200 rods, so that you can get a couple technique specific rods, than buying one good $500 rod, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think right now my most expensive rod is probably my Evergreens, and I got those specifically as chatterbait rod because it's the Evergreen chatterbait rod. So, and that was only $230, but I got it on a deal, so it cost me less than 200, and definitely one of my favorite rods as far as overall uses.
So, question for you: what do you start with in the beginning of the season? Like, what's your bait that you?
My
like a go-to
starting bait is absolutely 100% a chatterbait. Like the first thing I throw.
Yep.
And I know that seems pretty basic, but I have it dialed down to the point where I know it's going to work. Last year, it was not the first thing that I got a fish on, but it was the first thing that I was fishing with. Actually, last year's first fish came on a lipless crank, Jackal TN70. And I have never seen a fish get hooked, get dragged to the boat, get off of the hook, drop down into the water, probably 3 feet away from me. And I'm just looking at it. It turns around. I drop the lure back in the water and comes right back. And
I've had him do that with.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going with this then.
I've had him do it with swim jigs.
Yeah.
I actually had a fish one time. Another weird thing, but I had a fish one time. So I have that horizontal. I have that Yak Gadget horizontal rod stager.
Yep.
I had a bass actually spin my kayak because I had a swim jig that I didn't hook. I had it hanging off the tip, and it actually came out of the water, grabbed that swim jig that was hanging above the water, and I was like in my kayak, and all of a sudden I felt like that, and I was like, "What the hell?" And I saw the bass like let go and drop. Like Yeah,
Uh,
I've had bass do that. So you know what's funny is, and maybe I don't know if you had the same experience as I did last year. So chatterbait from let's say third week of April to
yep.
first week of June was lights out. Like you couldn't not catch a fish on a chatterbait. After that, I struggled to catch a fish on it. I had
Mine
a
went,
hard time.
yeah, mine went to about the beginning of July, and then it dipped a
It
little
just
bit.
died for me.
Yeah, for died for you. It dipped a little bit for me, but then I essentially what I did is I started switching from my general standard size half-inch chatterbait. I started mixing it up with like the stealth blade
Okay.
and the mini max, and those are kind of like my three. And I continued getting bites, but it did switch over.
It's funny, dude, because I picked up the Evo because I was
Yep.
like, you know what? This is like the perfect blend of not a jackhammer, but not a $4 cheap one.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the Rapala freeloader on there, that whatever I can't remember what they actually called those, Crush City or whatever. And that was, dude, I was killing it on those. And then I went with the like big swim bait. In the spring, I throw a lot of big swim baits. I'm not really a swim bait fisherman,
Mm.
but the thing about the swim bait is in the summertime, I don't feel like it's as effective, but they're in the feed up stages at the end of the spawn when they're starting to feed up,
Yep.
and right before they spawn, like those weird moments where they're about to feed up. If you
Yep.
throw, like my PB was caught on that mag, like that color mag draft, and it was just slow roll it and they pound it. But the chatterbait is something that I have never caught a fish on spinnerbait because of the chatterbait. Because I'm not even gonna bother throwing a spinnerbait half of the time because I have the chatterbait and it does the
I still
same.
throw. It's funny that you say that because sometimes it's pretty situational.
It is.
Um, I mean, I'll carry spinnerbaits and chatterbaits and just throw them until the fish tell me, okay, I don't want a chatterbait, I want the spinnerbait, or vice versa. So,
Yeah.
and then I'll stick with that pattern and I'll put the other one away, and then when that starts to die off, I'll change up colors or something like that, or I'll throw something else until I'll go with a smaller swim bait or I actually just started. So what got me into the bigger swim baits to start? I started hammering them on a 6-inch burrito last fall,
Yeah.
and that was like my first big swim bait that I really decided to start throwing. And I know that's not really a big swim bait. I mean, there are obviously way bigger ones, but for me, somebody who's typically throwing like a 4 or 5 inch, rage swimmer or something like
Yeah.
that, you go up to a burrito and it's like, oh, okay. And yeah, I started hammering them on that thing. So I'm like, okay, it's time to start investing in these and try these out next year.
So it's funny is what I use? I use the big swim baits and the glide baits. So what happened with that was A-Bay sent me some, and I was playing around with them, and he wanted me to film some underwater footage. So I was filming with them, and that's what made me really appreciate them. Was, dude, I was throwing them. I was wading into like a boat ramp, and I was
Mhm.
casting them and reeling them past a camera. Went back, reviewed the footage. Dude, I had bluegill, crappie, 6-inch smallmouth, just following this thing in.
Uh-huh.
8-inch glide bait, 4-inch crappie glued to it. And I'm like, huh. And it made me realize that like they don't have a perception of that's too big for me to eat, and they
Correct.
also like they are such a curious species that like they will follow it, and sometimes it kind of goes with the whole forward facing sonar thing is they're there because when you
Exactly.
drag them back to the boat, even if they don't bite it and then they dart off, you
Yeah.
watch them where they go and you go, okay, he's
Yep.
going back home, flipping a jig, flipping a
Yep.
Seiko, flipping a
Exactly.
Ned,
Go back
follow
there
it with
an
another
hour,
bait.
45 minutes later, and toss in another bait and see if you can trick them into biting that. Something a little more agreeable with their face. So
Honestly,
yeah.
my bait of the year last year was swim jig.
Yep.
And it's simply because it's a cold water bait. It's a warm water bait, and the
Mhm.
beauty of a swim jig is a swim jig is a jig.
Exactly.
You can flip it, you can pitch it, you can swim it. It if you actually take like literally my swim jig that I was using wasn't even a
Mm.
swim jig. It was a Booyah flipping jig.
Hmm. And you
But
just turned it into a swim
it's
jig.
got that arced head. It's the
Yep.
arky style head. So it's effectively a swim jig anyways with the way the head is designed.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
just fished it like a swim jig with a paddle tail on it. And then I would throw a craw on it sometimes. And a lot of times I would dual retrieve it. So I would flip it up to a grass edge, let it fall,
Mm.
drag it a little bit, and then slow roll it back.
Yep.
So I'm
So,
getting the drop of a normal jig bait, I'm getting the drag of a normal jig bite, and then I'm getting the slow retrieve. So I'm getting all three types of retrieve, which means I've fished all three water columns all the way back.
yep. So a little tip. I don't know if you've done this before. Take a little bit heavier swim jig, like a California style swim jig. Go into the grass and just bust it.
Yep.
Just absolutely bust through that grass, bust through the pads, the pickerel grass, whatever, and you will be surprised at how aggressive of a bite you can get from that.
You know what's really erratic, but it works pretty good is you do that with a football jig.
That is kind of weird.
So if you do it with a football jig, yeah, see, Wolf just said that. Literally, you say you ever swim a football jig, dude? It's funny because that head catches water weird and it makes
Yeah.
it like erratic. It makes it
Well,
hard.
that's why they use it for swing heads all the time.
Yeah.
That's why you get so that makes complete sense. That was something that I've noticed. The wobble heads, as you call them. It always was like, okay, why do they have it as a football helmet or football style?
Yeah.
When I first started doing this, and I'm like, okay, now I understand it. You're dragging it through rocks and stuff like that. You want the deflection.
Yeah.
It's less likely to get hung up. And I'm like, okay, let's try and swim this and see what happens. I mean, granted, that's not what it's designed for, but you'd be surprised at how effective it is just to swim it. As Wolf said, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like you try it out just to see if it works, and if it does, you stick with it.
Swim it with a Senko, dude.
Yeah,
Nuts.
yeah,
It's a weird. It's see that's the thing. That's the thing I love about like fishing in general though is like there's so many little nuances too. Like I will some days burn a Senko on top of pads too.
yep.
Like basically fish it like a buzz bait where I'm just blowing it across the top of the water and they just smallmouth especially, dude. I don't know if maybe it's just our smallmouth, but dude,
Our
smallmouth get
smallmouth are just built different.
pissed when something's going across the top of the water. They
Oh,
will shamu, they will free willy after that thing.
mhm.
I've had smallmouth like doing this behind it. Like miss it, come back, hit it, come back, miss it, come back, and then catch it. Because they're like, I don't want you there. I'm going to murder you.
Smallmouth are so violent, and I used to be all about the largemouth, just because you're fighting a fish that when you hook into it, especially a big one, you hook into that thing, and it's just like, all right, I'm going to sit here, and you're like, all right, let's real
Yeah.
try to drag this sucker in. Now you go with a smallmouth, and they're just like, no, I don't want this in my face, and I'm going to tail walk across the entire lake to get it out. And it's so
Smallmouth,
much
especially
fun.
on some of the lakes that we both fish, their first move is up
Yep,
every time.
every
And
single time.
and it's not just the little ones. I used to think it was just the little ones until I started getting into the big ones. The big ones will go down to get more momentum and
Hmm.
then come up.
Yeah, they'll bulldog you a couple of times, and then your line will go slack you. That, oh crap, I gotta
Yeah.
start reeling because I know what's coming.
And
You
you
know,
literally have to like and you'll see it in my videos. Like you'll hear me like all of a sudden you see me lean forward in my video. That's because I feel that line getting looser and I'm burying the rod tip in the water because I know he's coming up. That's actually why I started fishing more moderate rods.
yeah,
Certain types of
absolutely. I
techniques.
mean, oh, I heck even so. I was watching Greg Hackney talking about flipping, and now everybody knows like back in the day, flipping with a broomstick was like the way to go.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's like you want one that's not quite a broomstick, still has a little bit more tip, And I'm beginning to notice that a lot more anglers are leaning to the more moderate tips, moderate rods
Yeah.
overall, and it's resulting in a lot better hook up to land ratio. And I think, go and I'm a so a lot of people out there don't like using glass rods because of the weight. Me personally, it doesn't really bother me. Um, and my first time using a glass rod last summer, I had just gotten my evergreen chatterbait rod, and any other rod. So I had a 4.5 pounder chomp my chatterbait 2 feet away from the boat. Any other rod, I would have lost that fish.
Yep. Yep.
But that rod just whoop,
Yep.
bent right over like a noodle, and she hooked herself, and I was able to boat her. And I'm like, okay, I'm hooked on this rod. I'm all about the glass rods now.
I caught a largemouth on Little Sunapee in a tournament. Same thing, dude. That fish, I was in my old town, and that bass swam under the nose of my kayak and hit a square bill at that, like, underneath the kayak, and then smacked it right there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was maybe 2 revolutions of the reel before that bait was out of the water.
Oh my god.
And if I had had a fast action rod, it probably would have broke my rod because it was a 20-inch small or a 20-inch
Yeah.
largemouth.
Yeah.
So it's essentially a 5 pound bass that hit with 4 inches
Yeah.
left of before I was into leader. And like
Mm-hmm.
he did, you know how like pike do that? Where pike like torpedo in from under your boat and then
Oh yeah.
smash the bait right next to your
Mm-hmm.
boat. He did that, and I was only in like a foot of water. So I saw it all happen. And you hear on the video, like you watch the video, you hear me go, holy shit, because I didn't like I would already like ADHD checked out and was like looking for the next cast.
Yep.
And like that fish just came in and
Yep.
torpedoed it. And if I wasn't using a moderate rod that gave me that extra ability to flex, it would have broke the rod tip.
Yeah. No
And
doubt.
the other thing about like more moderate rods that I like is the top water aspect. A lot of people
Oh.
don't do that, but the
Yeah.
top water bite, it gives you that buffer when you go to swing on it where you don't rip it out of their mouth as quick, especially
Yes.
with like certain types of frogs that have already a bad hookup ratio to begin with. You give a
Yeah.
little bit of buffer, and because they're already on the top, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times what they do is they bury themselves in the pads. Well, with a fast action rod, you reel down, but now you got to pull your kayak to you're pulling you to the fish instead of the fish to you in that situation.
Yeah.
With a moderate rod, you get a little bit more freedom to change the position of your rod before it
Yeah.
unloads.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's that. Oh, sorry, had to adjust there. Butt's getting a little sore in my old age.
You need a kayak cushion.
Why do you think I got the one that I did? It's practically a bass boat.
Yeah, it's dude. Did you see the You probably didn't. So Mountain Road Trading Post tagged me, dude. They put a boat seat on the Titan base, like a padded boat seat that you'd see in a bass boat.
Okay.
They mounted that to the swivel seat from a Titan X,
Hmm. Interesting.
and I was like, huh. And I was like joking with him, and I was like, how much weight did that add? Like, is that gonna mess up the balance of the kayak? He's like, actually, it's not that much more weight. And I was like, because don't get me wrong, the seats are comfortable, but nice
Yeah.
squishy seat would be nice.
Yeah. I know. I'm looking for. So I just got picked up by Jackson. So I'm looking forward to putting some money aside to get myself a new NAR as a backup boat. You see the new seats that they came out with?
On the NAR, no.
Yeah, well, across almost all of their line except for I think it's the Kusa FD.
Okay.
Um, so it's the I think it's is it the High Rise 5.0 or something like that? Hang on, let me check.
I will say the NAR was the other boat I was looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like I mean, in a way, I'm just kind of, I guess I'm like always interested in different stuff, but like the Nar was definitely one of the ones that it has a lot of the same features that I was looking for. You know what I mean? Like the
Yep.
width, the stability, the storage. Yeah, I wonder. I haven't seen their new seat, but they always Jackson's also been good about coming up with like I love Old Town, love it, love my
Mhm.
kayak. They haven't changed that goddamn kayak in 10 years. They just come out with a new color every year. That's
I
what
know.
they change. They don't. I really wish, like honestly, if they had came out with something that competed with the Titan X, I
Yep.
probably would have gone with an Old Town because I'll admit their drive is awesome. Their pedal drive is freaking incredible.
Yeah. So it's called the Comfort Seat 5.0. And basically, what they did is they took their seat and they raised the front portion of it up so that when you're sitting back, it reduces the stress on your knees.
Okay, yeah, I see. Yep,
Oh,
I'm
my cat.
looking at it right now. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
what's funny is it's shaped a lot like the Titan seat. To be honest with
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
That's kind of how my Titan seat is shaped, actually. But they did curve it more. It's definitely more. It's more ergonomic.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. Oh, man.
So
So,
you're looking to get NAR is what you're looking to.
yeah, as a backup boat, because so back in 23, I went down to the Challenge Series Championships, and I was running my old Outlaw 11.5, and I had the trolling motor up on the front, and went fine. Like the first couple days, practice was good, everything was going good. Day one hits, I ended up getting sick, but at the end of the day, pulled my boat out, did whatever, came back on day two, and motor wasn't working. Like would not turn on nothing. Had no idea what was wrong with it. So I had to paddle. And anybody who's owned an Outlaw, it's a great boat for a small pond. But Lake Gunnersville, especially when you got 20-mile-per-hour headwinds,
Oh,
you're not going to be paddling very well. And being sick on top of that, yeah, it was a rough time. So I have my Blue Sky Boat Works, which is going to be my motorized boat and my primary boat, and I want to get something that I can have as something that's not motorized. So if that motor does go down, you're not going to be wanting to paddle that Blue Sky around. I can basically pull the boat up and go swap it out and have the NAR with the flex drive and be able to pedal around afterwards and keep competing.
I could see where like there's probably some ponds too in Vermont that like it would be better just to throw a Jackson
Yep.
into instead of trying to because your boat's big
Yeah.
and
My,
there's a lot of
my
places.
boat is essentially meant for like large ponds and
Yeah,
lakes. So the smaller ponds like Pensioner, there's a couple of other little ones up here. Spectacle Pond, these tiny little 40, 50, 60 acre ponds. And it's like, yeah, I don't need a giant boat to go around on. Granted, the thing I would be missing is um, the spot lock. But I mean, I could also set my Jackson up where I could just take the motor, put it on the Jackson, and if something did
yeah.
happen, I could take the motor off and then just run the pedal drive, and I should be fine.
You run what you have an XI3 motor, right? That's what you
Yes.
run.
Yep.
Yeah, so you could essentially just buy another base
Yeah. That
and then
that's what
just
I would
swap
do
it.
is just have another base, and of course I'd have to go and register the NAR, but I think that would be fine.
You'd want to probably get that base sooner than later though, considering motor guide's not a thing anymore. But
I know. I know. I'm curious to see where they're going to go with that. Like how they're going
The
to rebrand.
Rance is gonna come out with a motor. I
Yeah.
almost guarantee it.
Yeah, because the demand is so high for kayak motors right now, and people are actually using their Minn Kota and they're taking it to an authorized dealer to have it cut.
Cut it down.
and so that way they can keep the warranty on it.
So my theory, you guys can quote me now, is Lowrance will come out with a kayak motor with the Eagle Eye transducer built into it. Is what they'll do.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because it's going to be a $3,000 fucking trolling motor, but it will have the Eagle Eye 9, the active whatever their actual was an active target 2 that's in there. It'll have that reduced capability transducer built in, or the ability to add it to it as you
Yeah.
want to.
Yep.
And they'll make they'll take their trolling motor, they'll cut it down. It'll be expensive, but they'll make one.
Yeah, I mean,
Because Motor Guy was it. That was
yeah.
Literally you got that and then Newport. And Newport's not a spot lock, it's a
Yeah, I mean that's one thing you got to choose. All right, do I want the spot lock or do I want to be able to run 6.5, 7 miles per hour up a river or something like that?
Those NK300s are stupid, dude.
Oh my god, I was watching some of this stuff on that. I'm like, okay, my boat's loaded out to the max, and I might be pushing like 4 miles an hour, like maybe.
Yeah.
And then I see the guy. So somebody actually put, I think, twin torpedoes on their blue sky,
Yep.
and this dude is flying.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, that's tempting.
Yeah,
That's really tempting.
Rudd was telling me like that motor is nuts, and he's pushing a Hobie, and
Yeah.
that's a heavy boat.
Yeah, it is.
Hobies are heavy.
Uh-huh.
He's like, if you run it full throttle and you don't rev it up, he's like, it'll literally like wheelie. Like, that's stupid. See, that's the thing, dude, is I opted to not with the new kayak. I'm actually choosing not to motorize it.
Yeah. So you're just gonna run the pedal on that then?
Yeah, and the reason for that is a couple of reasons. One, I recently, you guys actually probably can't tell from my videos, but I basically lost 80 pounds from
No,
October to
I
now.
can tell just by looking at you now.
Yeah. I don't look like it in the fishing videos that I've been putting out because I'm wearing 5 layers of clothes underneath. But it's the exercise. I needed the exercise.
Yeah.
Because I work in an office. So I
Yep.
sit at a desk all day. So I've kind of like made a health commitment to myself because it forces me to exercise. By having no motor, it's a forced exercise, and I'm going to do it because I'm fishing. Like, it is nuts how much, like, I clocked it one time with like my mapping. Dude, it was like 15 miles one day that I pedaled. And that's just the distance I traveled. That's not taking into account that I was just treading water a lot.
Yeah, you should see what the calories that you burned on that day was.
Dude, it's nuts. Like, it's well, and the thing is so I have a weird digestive system, so I can't eat when I fish because I will end up at the porta potty within 20 minutes of eating. So the only thing I really consume all day is a couple of Cliff Bars. I have water, but basically I'm pounding energy drinks, water, and I'll eat like 2 or 3 Cliff Bars throughout the day. So my calorie deficit is like insane.
Yeah, I'm the same way with eating, drinking. Like you just get into a point where you're in a zone and you're focused on it. You don't think about anything else. I mean, for me, health wise, I was able to quit chewing essentially because I'm not even like really even thinking about nicotine. When I started a couple of years ago, I'd go through a pack and a half of cigarettes a day, not doing anything. But if I go out fishing, I might have smoked 2 or 3 cigarettes the entire 8 hours that I was out there, just because I'm like so focused on it.
It's crazy how like that's what happens with me, and then on top of it, like it's what it did is it replaced like a lot of different things for me, which is why I did the whole no motor, no, and honestly, the other factor of the no motor deal was the simplicity of it. So I don't have to worry about the wiring messing up. I don't have to worry about charging a second battery to run the motor and then charging the battery to run my fish finder and my other stuff, because the one thing about those trolling motors, especially with the spot lock, is you need a dedicated power source because you don't want to try to use one battery to do it all. If you're going to fish 8 hours like I do, 8-10 hours, because you're not going to get all that time. It's just not going to happen. I mean, you're just sucking too much power down. Like that's one of the things that's one of the reasons why there's a logo above my head now, because I needed to hook up with a battery company, because going forward facing sonar, it's not using the tiny bit of battery that my down imaging was using last year. I'm going through a significant more battery just using
I'm
that.
seeing a lot of kayakers running no less than like 50, 60 amp hour batteries just hooked up to their live scope, nothing else. And then they have other batteries for their regular units. And I'm like, no. I mean, it would be nice to have that stuff, but I'm kind of really enjoying the Drew Gregory approach because it makes me more,
Yep.
I don't know, more connected.
Yep.
So, and again, electronics has just been one of those things. I did try it. I got one of those Garmin SV ones that does its own mapping and stuff like that. And I really didn't like it. I'm like, most of the time I'd be staring at the screen like, oh, there goes a fish. Oh, there goes a fish. And I'm like, but he's already behind me. So, okay, turn around, cast, whatever. What do you bit? I'm like, man, this is dumb. So I just took it off and just go blind. Well, not really blind, but just using my knowledge of where the fish should be, how they should be relating based upon the weather, based upon the time of year, what the feed is doing. And it's worked well for me so far. So
it's funny because I had this conversation yesterday with Chris. That's one of the guys on our trail. It's actually the guy that comes on host with me sometimes. Forward facing sonar for me is going to be different than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is my disadvantage in tournaments and in general is I go to a lake. If you put me on a lake that has visible structure, trees, rocks, ledges, bluff walls, shoreline, I can fish it. And there's a good chance I'll be competitive. But you get me on a lake like Bombazine, where you go down the shoreline and the fish aren't there. Now you got to go fish in the middle. Well, the middle is 40 feet deep. I'm dead. I'm done. Because
Really?
I need a visual to cast to. It's really weird. I don't know why. Now, it's that being said, I don't. It's funny that I'm going. It's really kind of in a way contradictory, because I used my fish finder for depth.
Yeah.
That's about it. Every once in a while, if I saw like a cool hole in the grass or something that, like, you just watch the bottom and all of a sudden it goes like a heartbeat. Yeah, I'm gonna stop and fish that for a second. But I'm not really even looking for structure. I'm basically using it for depth. A lot of the tournaments that I fished that we won, I turned my fish finder off.
Yeah. Yep.
Like there was a lot of times where if I'm fishing in less than 10 feet of water, a lot of times it's not even on, because it's just, I feel like, and it's maybe just my own theory, I feel like it scares the fish at that depth because you're that close to them.
Yeah, there's definitely been some literature out there that suggests that, but it's not really one of those guarantees, because think about it. I mean, you look at live scope and you're pointing 20, 30 feet away, you're pointing your live scope right at these fish and throwing a bait at them, and they're still reacting to your bait. So I mean, I get that, and I guess it also probably has to do with the amount of pressure too. So if you start that at the beginning of the year and you're thwapping them with your sonar, they're probably like, all right, that's not so bad. But come August, when these guys have been shellacked by every weekend warrior and weekly guy with a fish finder for the past 4 or 5 months, they're going to be like, yeah, okay, I think I'm going to close my mouth on this one.
So my theory on the forward-facing sonar for my goal this year, and that's something that I'm making an entire video series on it. So part of me buying one was actually for content, but I'm doing it differently, in my opinion, than everybody else, because everybody else's videos are, this is my forward-facing sonar, this is how you use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm making my video of I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. Let's learn.
Oh, you know what? That would probably you'd probably get a lot of hits on that just simply because a lot of the guys coming into it don't know how to
Yeah.
use it, and they're gonna be like, okay, I want to learn like this guy's learning, and be like, okay, I can see that,
I've
and now
tried
I
I've
understand
tried
what
watching videos on like,
they.
to get a basic idea of how to set it up and how to use it.
Yep.
But really what I want forward facing sonar for is a few things that people I've talked Mikey is one of them actually.
Yep.
So I'm actually going to use it shallow almost as much as I'm going to use it deep because one thing that I was told that I never thought of, and it was a concept that I probably shouldn't even say it on a video because my competitors are going to hear this, is what Mikey told me that they do in Florida a lot is they'll scan grass edges and docks with
Hmm.
the forward facing sonar. So if you go down a shoreline with 50 docks, you can go, okay, there's fish on that dock, but there's none on that dock, but there's fish on that dock, but there's none on that dock. So then you can start going, okay, they're only on docks with black floats, or they're only on U-shaped docks. And there is that pattern. And you
Yeah.
do find that when you're just flipping and pitching and being shallow.
Yep.
What that fish finder does is it gives you the ability to be 30, 40 feet off of the bank,
Yeah.
point, pan up a bank and go, okay, that dock has fish on it.
Yep. Makes you
Shoot.
more efficient.
And then that's how I'm going to start learning it because that's going to be my way of knowing. I have a lot of lakes where, and I'm not even trying to brag, but, and you know, a couple of the lakes that I'm talking about
Yep.
that I can call my shot on. I can go to a lake and say, throw a black blue swim jig right here, do a medium retrieve, and you're going to catch bass. So
That's
I'm
true.
going to take advantage of that knowledge, take the forward facing sonar there and pan it around
Yep.
and then be able to be like, okay, so that's what a bass looks like because I know there's always a school of bass on this dock. And I always, and there's
Yeah.
one, it's two or three docks me and you have talked about specifically that on a certain lake that just
Yep.
always have a big fish on it. But there's
Oh,
certain things
absolutely.
like that.
Absolutely.
And
Uh,
my biggest thing with the forward facing sonar is once I get down that bank and that bank, the game plan didn't work, right? Once I get through plan B and then plan C, I'm done in a tournament. At that point, I'm spinning out because I don't know where to go. That's why I want to try to get to the point where then I'm going to go scoping. I'm going to run down the bank and fish my way. I'm
yeah.
not necessarily going to use the fish finder
Yep.
that much. And then when I need to go deep, this is going to be, I treat it like I'm going to be in 30 feet of water, but I'm going to be able to have that visual structure. I'm going to be able to have that tree, that dock, that rock,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to point at a pot of fish, try to fish them.
Hmm.
If they don't bite, I'm not going to be. That's the one thing I won't do. I'm not going to sit there with a fucking what is that the flash minnow or whatever the Demiki rig or whatever. I'm not going to sit there and work a minnow for 2 hours. That's not my game. That's not who I am. I'm
Yep.
not going to drop shot one spot for 2 hours hoping that they bite. What I
Tell
am
you
going to
what.
do is I'm going to cast out. I'm going to fish it. If it works, great. If I see a pot of fish, I'm going to roll a swim jig, a lipless, or a deep diver through them and see if they react to it. But I'm also going to mentally keep track of, okay, I'm in 20 feet of water. There's a hard bottom. There's this, and this. There's fish here. If they're not biting here, there's 5 other places that I know of that have this same condition. I'm going to go see if there's other fish on the same type of structure.
Yeah.
Because the other thing I've learned, and I know you probably learned this too, is like getting back to like spring fishing. The thing I learned about spring fishing is so say there's a dock that you always catch fish on in May, but you're fishing April. Go 30 yards deeper than that dock.
Yep.
Go towards the middle, add 30 yards. I don't know why. It doesn't make any goddamn sense because there's nothing out there. But sometimes when that fish isn't on that dock, he is out here.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. That's where the forward facing sonar I think is going to help me because sometimes my theory is that fish was never on that dock. He's always been out here. But when you fish that dock, he's watching that dock.
Yeah. I mean, he's using that dock like any other fish would use a type of structure or something to pin. So that fish is probably relating to that dock simply because of the fact that it attracts bait fish to it.
Yeah.
So what he's doing is he's positioning himself far enough away where the fish will feel comfortable enough to go in there, and then he can move forward when he feels ready to, and then ambush them and use that dock to pin them up against the bank.
Yeah. And that's something that I've used a lot. Like I'll add 30, 40 yards to a piece of structure on the shoreline. But again, my problem is I need that rock, that weird bent tree, that weird white birch tree, the blue camp with the brown door. Like I need old school, you know, mapping in my head to do it.
So here's something that you could do if you're going down the bank, you're not getting bit. Just turn around and start flinging out deep.
Yep.
Do that, and I mean, I've had quite a bit of success. And it blew my mind to the first time that I did it, and I actually got a fish.
Yep.
That was just suspended out deep, just out there. Nothing was up shallow, and I'm like, man, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, you know what? Let's just start screwing around. Next thing you know, pulling a 3.5 pounder. It's like, okay, this is interesting. Go 10, 15 foot down, cast again, get another one. It's like, oh, all
Yeah.
right.
Me and bear fishing, that was pretty much our tournament strategy.
Yep.
This dude is more comfortable in 3 inches of water than he is 10 feet. He will be, and he's always sight fishing. Like he's sight fishing all year long. It's just how he operates.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll be, I mean, he's like got his hand on the dock. He's fishing. Like he's that close with him. I don't know how he does it because I can't get in there and catch fish. So what we started doing was when I started practicing for tournaments, and that's what's going to be weird for me this year because I'm going to be solo. So it's going to be just my own strategy. But like I was planning out, okay, he's not going to want to fish this area because he's going to get bored with it. So we're going to go down this bank. But what I'm going to do is be 30 yards from him deeper and fishing out while he's fishing in. So we're kind of covering that area. We're covering a 30-yard swath between us all the way through. But yeah, the thing, that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with the lipless. Because the lipless allows you to fish shallow or count it down, fish it a little deeper, count down, fish it a little bit deeper, yo-yo it. You can do a lot of different things with it. But that's how I fish a lipless is if I'm not catching them on the bank, I'll parallel the bank a couple times.
Uh-huh.
If they're not working, I bomb it out to the deep or 45 it from the deep to the shallow because then you're covering. A lot of the times the way that works, especially in Vermont lakes, because everything is basically a bowl in Vermont, when you're pulling that lipless, it's coming up, but it's coming up a bank. So it's like coming up all those different depths back. When you go deep shallow, that it's literally you're covering 20 feet, 10 feet, 8 feet, and 5 feet by having a horizontal plane because the bottom is coming up to the bait.
Yep. And by doing that, you're doing the same thing, like going back to when you were talking about the dock, the fish will follow your bait and they'll try to pin it, to the shallow. So that's why it's so effective to go deep and bring it shallow. I mean, it works for bank fishermen. So you figure for us, you guys going out in the boats and the yaks, we should do that too.
I do that with loud baits a lot too, though. That's the other thing is I find that that's where I like silent in general. I will fish a lot more silent baits than most guys do, but I will fish like loud liplesses. I'll fish chatterbaits and even like the big like heavier crankbaits that have like the one knocker that really make like a thump. I find that like echolocates them.
If you want to go quiet and still fish a lipless, go to a blade bait.
True.
Go to a blade. I was absolutely laying into them last year on a blade bait. And it was the first time I started throwing it, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to throw this like a typical lipless. Man, did those smallmouth absolutely annihilate that thing to the point where I had to change out hooks on 4 or 5 different baits, probably at least a dozen times in a month.
I'm going to have to talk to you about that because I've never had success with a blade bait. I've tried it, but I think I'm not doing something right which is weird because I fish a lipless all the time and it's not much of a different. It's just, Metal
mean,
lipless,
there's
really.
some subtle differences in there. Um, but how are you fishing it?
I've done a little bit of like I've done slow retrieves, I've yo-yoed it, I've even burned it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I haven't done like dragging it. Like I know some guys will like throw it deep and drag it, but with our lakes, that's not really effective.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't want to drag it in our lakes and ponds because once that it gets stuck on something, forget it. You're not getting it
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
And if you're running like a Demiki vault or something like that, that's not something that's cheap.
no,
No, my best success has been yo-yoing it,
okay,
but I will do it a little bit more aggressively than what's typically considered normal. So
okay,
when they say you go to retrieve it, you want to lift it up until you just barely start feeling it vibrate. I don't do that. I lift it up and feel it vibrate for 4 or 5 seconds before I let it go back down,
okay.
and that has worked really well for me. So give that a shot. I mean, play with
Yeah.
it, see what works.
That's kind of one of my goals for this year.
Mm-hmm.
So spinnerbait. See, I'm getting more into making like video series instead of just doing like individual. Oh, look, I caught a fish videos. I'm trying to do more like I'm trying to like teach myself, and I figure while I teach myself, there's other people that are probably in the same boat and they probably want to learn the same way.
Yep.
So like I'm gonna be doing like a series on spinnerbaits where like I just learn how to fish a spinnerbait.
Yeah.
Most of the time, a spinnerbait's going to go rusty before I catch a fish on it because I use it a few times. I forget to dry it off. I put it away wet and it comes out nasty.
Mm.
The blade bait's another one that I haven't had a lot of success with. And last year, I got away from like Texas rigging
Yep.
and I need to get back to like creature fishing, like
Yeah.
straight. And I'm not talking like punching necessarily either, just
Mm-hmm.
straight Texas
Basic.
rig
Yep.
style or free rig, whatever you want to do. Like either one, to me, they're kind of the same thing. Um, and just getting back into like flipping into cover and
I just started flipping last year. Actually, my first flipping fish. Um, I was on one of my favorite little ponds, Tickle Naked.
dude,
Uh,
I want to fish that lake just because I want to put Tickle Naked in a title.
it's fun. It is really fun. And I was just flipping just because I decided to. I'm going to go up there and flip the pickerel grass because that sucker is surrounded by it, like
Right.
all over the place, and it's thick. So I'm like, all right, we're gonna go in here because I've seen it enough on different shows where guys are in like a foot of water and they're jacking freaking 6, 7 pounders out. I'm like, dude, that's like what? So I get up in there and my first fish, no joke, is in 6, 7 inches of water, surrounded by pickerel grass. I flip in there. I'm running about a 1 ounce weight,
Yep.
and it hits. I shake it a couple, pop it up a couple of times, and then about 10 feet away, I see the reeds like shake a little bit, and I'm like, oh, here it goes.
Yeah.
And then within a second, 5 feet away, and then immediately I just thunk, and I laid into it. 4.5 pounders, like 19 3/4 inch largemouth. I'm like,
Yep.
what? Okay, all
Yeah.
right, this is a lot more powerful than I thought it was.
Now, are you pinning that, or are you just letting it? Do you pin your Texas
Oh,
rigs, or do you?
definitely. And yeah, no, it's no, I double pin it.
See,
So
sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. And sometimes what I'll do is I will what I call redneck Carolina rig.
I know what you're talking about.
So yeah, like sometimes I'll double pin it, but then I'll like slide that bottom weight up so it's like
Yep.
and I don't give it a lot of float either. Like I'll put it like
Yep.
that far from the hook, but sometimes it's getting it up off the bottom. Like the one thing I've noticed about and for those who aren't from our area, hard bottom's not really a thing. There's very few lakes in Vermont that have truly hard bottom. There's parts of them that'll have it, but then you get into certain areas and it will be completely muck.
uh, I think Echo Lake is probably one of those up
Yep.
here. Up
Yeah,
here.
your Echo.
Yeah.
You know
I
there's three, right?
yeah.
And two of them are garbage.
The one down by your way, which I think is, what is that? That's connected to, is it Amherst?
Yeah, it's on that same chain on
Yeah, it's
100.
all of them are right off 100. And they have some donkey smallmouth in there. I guarantee it. I mean, if it's all the same watershed that's coming down, you got to figure that's all attached to, especially like Eligo and what's the other one up there? Eligo was a good one that I went to last year.
I don't think Amherst
Who
is
did?
a thing
Who
anymore.
did? That's the one with the record smallmouth is from. Well, officially
Right.
from.
So
But
I don't think Amherst is a thing anymore though.
no.
No, so a funny story. Somebody bought the house that's between Amherst and Echo,
Yep.
and
Oh wait, I think you told me
the
this.
dam failed.
Yep.
So I don't think there's any water in Amherst anymore. I think it's
Okay.
all in Echo.
Yeah. So that's like what Echo Rescue and formerly Amherst.
So you actually got Woodard,
Yep.
which is not technically connected to them,
Yeah.
and then Amherst. So there's Amherst, Woodard. Technically, Rescue's in the same general area, and then
Yep.
Echo. The problem with Echo is there's a state park on it,
Yep.
and it's amazing how many jet skis are on a little lake like that.
That doesn't surprise
It's
me. You
not
should
a
see.
very big lake, and it's loaded with jet skis.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that.
Now the Echo up by you, I almost sunk my bass boat in.
You should. We should actually go out on Seymour sometime in your bass boat. And
As soon as I get it fixed. So we went to
yep.
Seymour. We caught a bunch of fish. We decided we were going to switch things up and go over to Echo too. And
Yep.
I forgot to put my plug in from Seymour to Echo. And we got around the corner from the access onto the left shoreline before the only reason we knew is because my auto inflate life jacket exploded next to my seat.
Oh
And I looked down and the water was level with the deck of my boat. And I was like, oh, because that boat doesn't have an auto bilge, it has a manual bilge.
oh, that's bad.
So I turned on the manual bilge and I couldn't even start the motor because it was so shallow in there that I couldn't run the big motor. So I'm
Oh,
literally using the trolling motor to get back to the shoreline, pulled it up on the trailer manually, and then drained it and then fished the
oh.
rest of the day. But no, I want to do Seymour is going to be a lake that I think is on the Slay Nation schedule next year.
Yep.
I didn't put it on this year because I'm not so sure it's going to have a boat ramp yet.
Yeah, I don't know how far along they are with that. I'll check it out this year and see. I'll let you know.
Because we went up there for when we fished Magog, and we stayed at Brighton,
Mm-hmm.
and we were going to fish Seymour, and we got to Seymour, and
Yep.
the ramp wasn't there anymore. There was an excavator where the ramp used to be. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that
I'm not sure why they redid that ramp. I mean, it seemed perfectly fine to me, but there might have been something I was missing.
my understanding was I think they're redoing not just the ramp, but I think they're redoing some of the channel out
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
because they were having trouble with guys like not being able to launch boats during certain times of the year because it was so shallow until you get around that sandbar.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would make
So
sense.
I think their plan is to like tunnel that out a little bit so that they can
Yeah.
get boats in and out of there.
You'd think that they'd have more than one launch on a lake that big.
Or at least a double there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big parking lot. They could easily put a couple, like, even if it's like a double wide boat ramp and then a kayak like dirt launch off to the other side.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, that parking lot is so massive. You could hold any kind of tournament there.
Yeah, that's one of the lakes I want to do a tournament on.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about doing one on Island Pond just because, but it's
Yeah.
so busy.
Island Pond. So Island Pond's one of those ones where it's a decent size, but you got people up there that when they go to park their trailers, instead of lining straight up and out, they go in and take up probably 10
Yeah,
spaces, just but that's because they don't really get that much pressure in there, so they feel like they can get away with doing that.
yeah.
It's a bummer because Island Pond's really fertile, and there's a couple of great spots in there to get decent sized smallmouth.
Yeah.
Um, So my PB weight smallmouth was a 5'1" that I got out of there. She was only just barely 20 inches long. It was just like boop, big old football.
That's how like the one that I caught at Elmore.
Mm.
Is that Elmore? I think it was Elmore. Yeah, that was like that, and it was just
Yep.
like it was a mutant. It was like the true football, the style smallmouth. That's the whole thing. Is like next year. See, I'm trying to do with the Slay Nation stuff. I'm trying to do like different lakes every year,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
then eventually I want to make it so like we'll have somewhat of a rotation. But like, so say you fish bombazine in the spring. If I have to do bombazine next year, you're going to do it in the fall. So it's
Okay.
like it's not the same time of year, also,
Yep.
because I want to try to keep it a challenge. You know what I mean? Because there
Yeah.
is lakes, like you said, there's lakes that like I'm good at. That like Hortonia is one of those lakes. People hate that lake. They suck at that lake. I have a
I
lot of
haven't
success there.
I haven't fished anything outside of my region like ever. So like Eligo, I think Eligo was the one lake that I fished outside of my zone in a couple of years. Because usually I'm running up and down, like going up to Magog, and then I got
Yep.
these. There's a couple of really nice little ponds up there in Newport, and then I got Pensioner and Spectacle and Island Pond. We have Norton Pond up here. Let's see what else. There's Fairleigh, Morey. There's a couple nice ponds down around that area. So that's generally what I'm sticking to for the most part.
I wish Fairleigh would get a real boat ramp,
Oh, tell me about it.
dude. That
Dude,
and you guys aren't going to understand the frustration of like I
oh
would
yeah.
love to do a tournament at Fairleigh, but I would
Oh,
have to
I know.
pay.
Fairleigh is one of those locations that's just primo for both smallie and largemouth. But the boat ramp is god awful. The ramp itself is great, the dock is great, but it's so like small. Like the parking lot is like non-existent.
Guys, just to give you a visual, ready? So imagine the shoulder on the highway. That's the parking for the boat ramp. They
Yeah,
they basically took a boat ramp and then just made it so that you parked on the shoulder.
yep,
There's you can maybe get 6 trailers in there. And
yeah.
that's
That's pretty
creative parking.
accurate. Yep, that's accurate.
Like and it's I'm actually one of the things I'm looking at doing next year is trying to find a local business to partner with
Mm-hmm.
and then do a later start and like literally shuffle people. Like drop your boat off, drive your truck over at XYZ business, park
Mm.
out back, and we'll ferry you back. We'll get somebody with an SUV that can drive 5 guys at a time back to the boat ramp.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Because
Uh,
then you could have your event. Because a lot of our boat ramps, too, like even Maury is another one where like the actual boat ramp parking sucks.
it does. I mean, you're gonna have to park over in the hiking parking lot. So something you might want to consider is seeing if you could reach out to some of those youth camps
Yep.
that are dotting all over Fairleigh that are right next to the boat ramp.
Yep.
See if they'd be willing to, hey, you can have like this small area for parking
Yep.
for your guys, and then dudes could, obviously some people could park at the boat ramp,
Yep.
and then others, if there's no more room, they could, get to one of those.
Yeah,
areas.
my thought for Fairleigh was the car toppers could park at the ramp and then people with trailers will
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you could stack probably 10 car top cars in there because you could double them up.
yeah,
But
yeah.
with the
Mm-hmm.
boat trailers you can't.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's that's going to be the thing this year is like I'm going to be fishing. So I finally convinced my bosses to let me do 410s. So I work Monday through Thursday. I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. The
There you go.
benefits of that are there's a lot of places that I don't fish because and it's the running joke is I'm more likely to catch an assault charge than fish. Because there's some boat ramps around by me and there's some boat ramps that are just so loaded with people
I
that
know.
I'm just gonna get into a fist fight before I even launch my boat. It's just I can't deal with it.
Yep.
Bombazine's one of them. So by being able to fish on Friday, if I get there at daylight on Friday, I'm gonna have no comp. The guys that are there at 6 a.m. on Friday are fishermen, and
Yeah.
those guys don't bother me.
Yep.
It's the guys that it's when you get there in the morning on Saturday and you're waiting for the guy who's trying to launch his wake boat for the first time.
Or his jet ski.
Dude,
It's like, dude, you could carry that jet ski down to the water. Come on now.
did you see the reel I posted about the sailboat?
Oh no, no, I hadn't.
Dude, I went to Bombazine. Not even kidding you. So Bombazine has two launch like ramps at the launch, right? It's got a what they call a kayak launch, but you actually could launch a boat there.
Yep.
It's just at a weird angle, so you have to almost get in the road to back into it. On the
Uh-huh.
other side, there is an actual like true boat launch, but it's weird because it's like there's a point, the dock, so you have to kind of go out and around the dock to get into the main lake. When I came in from fishing all day, there was a sailboat tied to the dock. No one in it, and not a car in the parking lot. And I'm like, the hell? So there's a guy with a bass boat. I was in my kayak. Guy with a bass boat comes up behind me, and he goes to pull in there, and he can't. And I was kind of going to the ramp. I was doing my whole, okay, guys, I had a great day of fishing outro recording stuff, you know? So the guy
Yeah.
with the bass boat kind of came back out and he's like, do you know who that is? And I'm like, no, but dude, just go use the other ramp. I'll wait. It's a lot harder for you to stay in place than it is for me. So the
Yeah.
guy gets his bass boat unloaded. He leaves. I get my kayak on shore, packed up, literally strapped down, ready to go. Me being content creator guy, pull my phone out, walk over, and I'm like, this is exactly what you should not do. Leave a boat unattended on a dock. You're not using this for any purpose, and you're literally holding up a spot. Get
Mm.
back to my truck, and here comes a Jeep Wrangler with a weird looking trailer. And I'm like, that's got to be this guy.
It was, wasn't it?
He pulls in, so I'm filming him because I'm that asshole. I pull up my phone and I go, well, there he is. 3 hours in the making. He's finally pulling his sailboat out. So he comes, literally gets out of his car. He goes, are you filming me? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, why? And I'm like, because I'm a content creator. And he goes, oh. He's like, why are you filming me? And I'm like, because I can't believe you're that fucking arrogant to leave your boat on a dock for 3 hours holding up a whole spot. And he goes, what do you mean? And I'm like, dude, it's a boat ramp. Like I come from a world where I grew up doing like the king salmon fishing thing on Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
You had 4 minutes to get your boat in and out of the water, or someone would drag you out of your truck, load your boat, and leave you in a bloody pile in the parking lot. You don't, and we're talking 4 boats at a time
Oh
that are
my
being
god.
loaded like that. Like
Hmm.
these boat ramps in New York, you're loading 4 25-foot fiberglasses at the same time, not
That's wild.
tying your sailboat off to the dock for 3 hours and holding up that spot. The thing is, what was funny to me was I knew there was a bass boat tournament that was going to be there in the morning, and I thought that boat was still going to be there, which
Oh,
means that boat
dude,
wouldn't have been there. Because when
I
good
hear.
old boys showed up with their bass trackers and they couldn't launch their boat for their tournament, that sailboat would have been untied and punted.
Yeah. I don't even think they would have untied it. They would have cut the lines.
Yeah,
They would have cut the mooring lines and been like, bye.
yeah. Like, and it was just like to me, and that's the kind of stuff that drives me nuts
Mm-hmm. It's the
because
etiquette.
well, what it comes down to is, and I'm sure you see this a lot too. I know as a kayaker, I'm taking a little bit longer time to get my shit out of the water than a bass boat.
Yeah.
It does. It takes you have to get it out of the water. I have to basically unpack part of it because I'm not wanting to lift 200 pounds out of the water onto my trailer, and I have a
Yeah.
trailer, so I'm backing in and I'm pretty quick about it. But I will literally put my kayak in the reeds, start unloading it, and make a couple trips back and forth to my truck where they can have full use of the ramp and I'm out of the
Yeah.
way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I do when I go fish mooring. I'll pull up
Yeah.
on the very left side of the boat ramp,
Yep.
and I will literally pull up all my rods off, and I'll lay it down next to my boat,
Yep.
and I'll literally do that. And I've actually had people come in and launch right next to me
Yep.
as I'm doing this stuff, and it's perfectly fine. Like I've seen somebody up there like waiting, and I'm like, oh, you can come
Yeah.
down
Come down.
because
Yep.
and they're like, oh, is there enough space? I'm like, oh yeah, come right in next to me. There's plenty of space, and they do, and it's just so unpacking and everything, and then of course once that's all done, I go up, I grab the truck, come down. Throw everything in there, throw the kayak in the back of the truck, and boom, I'm out of there in 5 minutes. So,
What, dude? The thing is that's why I'm so happy to be on 410s now because, like I said, there's literally places like Bombazine is one of those things. So in May, my Breaking Bombo series that I kind of told you about is coming out, and that was I didn't fish that lake because I didn't want to deal with the people.
yeah.
And perfect example is I was fishing that lake with my kayak, and a bass boat was pulling, or I guess it was actually a deep V. Anyways, the boat pulls in, puts the boat on the dock. Guy gets out, walks up, grabs his trailer. I'm like, perfect. I'm just sitting there treading water in my kayak, waiting. Now I've been out there 8 hours. That's the other thing. I haven't eaten all day. Been
Mm.
pedaling for 8 hours straight. So I'm ready to go home when I hit the ramp.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I have either had such a good day that I'm excited and I'm ready, or I've had such a bad day that I could murder the next person that looks at me wrong.
And you're hangry at that.
And I'm
So,
hangry. So I'm sitting there treading water, waiting. Guy gets his truck. He backs up his truck, doesn't hook up his boat, starts putting rod sleeves on his rods,
what the?
starts sorting his fucking tackle.
Oh my
Not
god!
even shitting you, opening sorter boxes and reorganizing shit.
What a jack monkey!
Then loads his boat, still doesn't pull it out of the water, pulls his plug, starts wiping his boat down for some reason. And I'm at this point, I'm sitting there. My wife called me at the same time, like right about 10 minutes into this.
Oh my
And
god!
she goes, "Hey, I thought you said you were leaving the water." And I put her on speakerphone, and I said, "Well, I was, but some fucking asshole is packing all." And I'm like, I'm yelling this to the point where people on the other side of the ramp pick their heads up. And that's why I don't fish certain lakes certain times,
Yep.
because I don't have a filter. I'm not that guy that's going to be like, "Oh, I'm just going to grin and bear it." I'm the first guy, and don't get me wrong, there's been situations too where I've literally had my kayak on the dock and gone to get my truck. In one day at that same boat ramp, this guy came in with a panicked look on his eyes, and I saw him in his truck. His skeeter, his kid had taken his skeeter to the lake, and when his kid loaded this boat, I've never seen anything like it in my life. The gunnel was on the bunk. Like, trailer,
How?
boat.
How?
Boat was at a 45, $100,000 bass boat was at a 45-degree angle, strapped, and he drove it home.
How? How was
And I'm
anything?
like, I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I was like I moved my kayak and helped him get that boat off the bunks. Like, there's certain situations where, yeah, I'm gonna get out of your way. If you got a situation or something's going on,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
know it's going to take me time. I'm going to get out of your way.
Yep.
And I don't expect people to get out of my way. I also have a standard in my head. When I get to the boat ramp, like, I've actually gotten to the point now where with my kayak, I have my rods already in my rod stager locked down. I've sorted all my baits and crap before I hit the ramp. And when I walk to my truck from my kayak, I'm carrying a handful of rods and my cameras, because those are things that come off at the end of the day. So,
Yep.
like, I'm making the first trip to my truck to go get my truck, and I'm already carrying half of the stuff that I'm disassembling before I even get there. And
Yep.
then I back in, kick my kayak in the water, have a rope tied in front of it, pull it on the trailer, and then I pack it up on the corner. It
Yep.
takes me 3.5. Like, I've literally had people be like, "You do that really fast." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I have a system." Not to
Yep.
mention, my kayak trailer is literally a pop up camper. So it was a pop up camper trailer that we stripped down the frame and rebuilt into a utility trailer. So I've
Hmm.
got the steps still from when you stepped into the camper. So I literally back it up, step on that step, jump over the side rail, pull the kayak on the water, step on that step, get back down, and I'm out.
Nice.
And to me, it just drives me nuts when these guys are
Taking
it's
their time.
like just hook the boat up and get it out of the water. I don't
Yeah.
understand why. It's like literally what I always say too, and this is something that is probably controversial. I think they should remove parallel parking from the driving test and make you back a boat trailer up.
Oh man. Oh,
Because if you can back a boat trailer up, you can parallel park.
yep. Heck, if you could back up any trailer, you should be able to parallel park.
I don't think you should be able to haul a trailer without an endorsement.
You know what? So if you're gonna do like a trailer test, the one that you should practice on is like the shortest trailer you can find because it takes the most minute
Oh, mine,
changes to change the direction. So,
mine, mine. My tongue is this long.
oh gosh,
It's a pop up camper.
you sneeze and it's jackknife.
It's a 12-foot pop up. So the tongue is this long, and then it goes into like a V neck
Yep.
to the trailer. So literally, my tongue is about that long before you get into the. If you turn it too much, you're going to crinkle your bumper because you. And I can't see my trailer from my truck
Mm,
unless my tailgate's open. I can't see my trailer.
yeah.
So I actually have to have the stupid pole. I actually put poles on the two front corners
So you
because on
see it.
some boat ramps,
Yep.
when I go down over the ramp, I can't see my trailer anymore.
Hmm.
So I know where the corners of my trailer are so I can get down the ramp. I've literally had people at Chittenden Res. I had a woman one time literally walk up to me. I was packing my kayak up and I laughed so fucking hard at this. I had a woman come up and knock on my window. So I had backed down the ramp, got my kayak on there, loaded it up, and I was sitting there getting ready to go home. And I tick, tick, tick. And I'm like, this woman goes, can you back this fucking trailer down that ramp before I divorce his ass? And I was like, huh? And apparently he had jackknifed this freaking jet ski 4 times just trying to. And the thing with Chitin and Res is you can't really. There's not a way. Basically have to back down. It's kind of like Maury,
Yep.
but it's a straight shot. But you there's no turnaround at the bottom. So
Yeah.
think Maury, but like going straight down. So you can't turn around. So you have to back this thing like 40 yards
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get
And
to the water.
if you turn it just the wrong way,
You're
oh
you're blocking the whole thing. So
man.
I literally helped the wife emasculate her husband because she basically pointed to him and was like, out. And I backed the trailer down into the lake for him.
Nice.
Like, and the thing is it's because she saw me do it with my little trailer. Because I will say, and that's the one thing that is the most common. Those jet ski trailers are a bitch to back up.
I'm sure they are.
They're light, they cut quick, they're short tongued, and I've watched so many people just pushing them sideways down ramps. Like just epic. And honestly, I think the people that buy jet skis aren't necessarily have a lot of experience with trailers or something. But
Yeah.
dude, I have seen honestly, I really think it would be a cool YouTube series just to sit at a boat ramp. Because
Oh
dude,
my
there is
god.
some
You
days
should turn it into a comedy show.
I've seen some shit at boat ramps, man. Just
Uh, I think I've been blessed. I've been very fortunate with not having to deal with that kind of stuff in my area. Just most of the anglers I see
yeah.
are already have been doing it for a significantly long time in their lives, so they know what they're doing.
There's certain ramps. So like for like Bombazine, for perfect example. If you're there from 6 a.m. to 11, you're fine.
Hmm.
I call it the changing of the guard. From 6 a.m. to 11 is the fisherman's time. At noon, here comes the parade of pontoon and wake boats out of the marina.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes the jet skis into the boat ramp. So what happens is you'll see right around 11 o'clock, all the bass fishermen roll in, trout fishermen, they'll roll in, and we all meet at the ramp and we all pack our stuff up. And as we're doing it, here comes the man buns and the white claws. And they're pulling in, and you just see some shit. Like, it's just amazing to me, the stuff that you'll see. And that's what it is. Lake Dunmore is a perfect example.
I want to see that shit at Champlain. I probably will.
Oh, big time, big time. Mallett's Bay,
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. So
absolutely.
the Bassmaster kayak series is going to be at Plattsburgh
That one
um,
too. That
in
one's a big.
August, and I'm like, man, I'm actually kind of glad I don't have a trailer
Yeah,
because this is going to be very interesting to watch.
dude, I wanted to do that event, but because I'm not a Bass member,
Oh, yep,
like I'd have to become a Bass member
yep.
and then pay, what is it, 150? What is the entry on that?
The entry fee with tax, I think, comes out to like 264. I think that was the
Yeah.
last one that I saw on Tourney X. So yeah, it's 264.
Yeah. Plus
So
whatever what's the yearly Bass membership?
I want to say it's like $43 or
Well,
something.
that's not too bad then. But
It's not terrible, but you know what? You get your uh perks, like you get that the entire year of Bassmaster magazine and all that sort of stuff, which for me, I enjoy reading that stuff. I mean, there's plenty of tips and tricks and cool
dude,
stories.
I get one for free because someone accidentally signed up for it and sends it to our office. So
Nice.
I'm the only one in our office that fishes, so they just bring me the magazine every month.
There you go.
But see, I thought about doing that one, but I'm still haven't decided if I'm not going to do it. But
Yeah.
it's
I mean, if you do, I'm definitely set on doing it myself. So it'll be like my first step into the big leagues, just to do it. I mean, one of my other buddies, JT Hickman, fishing with Gramps, he did that last year on the Susky. So just for the experience of it, and that's kind of what I want to do. I want to see get my feet wet in the big leagues and see where how I stack up against everybody and
well, you're gonna get like
Mike Iaconelli, Drew Gregory.
you're probably gonna get Mike and Baby Mike because
Oh
I
yeah,
think his son does it too, right?
I think so.
Christine Fisher probably is going to be doing that
Oh
series
yeah,
this year
yeah. I met
again.
her and she's oh gosh, she's a hammer.
Um, yeah, there's some other like pros too sometimes that will do it, like
Oh yeah.
Bass pros that will do it.
Yep. Greg DePalm was one of them. Who the heck? Let's see. Russ. I'd imagine Russ Snyder is going to be there,
Yeah, yeah.
and a few. I think Garrett Wade's going to be there. So there's some pretty big names that should be dropping in on Champlain. So
I wonder if Drew Gregory's doing Bassmaster this year, or is he too busy with Kayak Adventure?
he did. Yeah, he's doing the Bass. He won the first one.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if he's going to end up competing this year because he's kind of like all in on that Kayak Adventure series that he's running.
Yeah, he just won the first kayaks. Oh, wait,
He did
that
the
was the adventure one in
might have been
Arizona.
Oh no, I may have been on Murray or whatever that was.
Not Murray. It was. I want to. What's that one in Arizona? Is that Havasu?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it was that one.
Okay, yeah, because he's another one that would be kind of cool to meet.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I take his approach. The only electronics he uses is that new that fishing app. What is it? Deep Dive. That's literally all he uses for electronics, and he just
Yeah,
follows the contour lines and stuff like that.
he does weird stuff though too. Like he doesn't use electronics, but he'll like literally custom modify his kayak so it floats different so he can get into some of those
Yeah.
places.
Oh yeah.
Like he's changing the weight distribution of his kayak so he can get into like 6 inches of water with it.
Yeah. He's wild.
So yeah, no, that's dude, now you got me. You got me. I kind of wanted to do that one just to dip my foot into that world.
Why not? I mean,
But
if you got the time to do it and you got the finances to do it, why not?
what weekend was that?
That is August. Hang on, I will get that info for you.
Because that's actually becoming really big.
It is. Yes, it is. That is July 26th and 27th.
Yeah, because I don't have any events that weekend either.
Yep. So, yeah, maybe we can get a bunch of us Vermonters to go in on it. I think it'd be a blast.
Yeah, Plattsburgh's not that far from me, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Couple hours.
Yeah, I mean, even you could go right over and take the ferry across, and you'd be all set.
Nah, dude, it's so expensive to take the ferries now.
Really? How much is it?
It's crazy, dude. So like Shoreham ferry is like $20 one way.
Well, that's not bad.
To go, I could go another half. It takes longer to go across the ferry half the time.
Huh, okay.
Because they wait till it's fully loaded before they'll leave.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
For me going to Plattsburgh, it's weird, but like I'm almost better out. Like I can go to Crown Point. I'm 20 minutes from Crown Point Bridge, so then I can just go across into Port Henry and then just go up that way.
Yeah,
or go up to Burlington and cross. But
yeah, typically when I go, across, I'll go Rouse's Point up that way, come across.
Dude, that bridge is 25 minutes from here.
Huh.
Because I'm right in Brandon. So, like, I just get on 30 over to 22A and then I'm there.
Okay.
Addison's not that far from me. So, it's like that. Matter of fact, that may be where I end up going with my kayak for the first time. Because that opens up early.
Those bridges are pretty spot. And I'll tell you one thing. A couple of years ago, I was just out driving with Sonia, just driving because that's what we do sometimes. I mean, she loves that sort of thing. We just go out and explore.
Yep.
And we went up that way just because. Went across the bridge to New York. And as we're crossing the bridge, I looked out on the right-hand side and looked down in the water, and there's probably about a 4 or 5 pound bass that's just chilling in about 3 feet of water, just hanging out down there.
They've been slamming lake trout under the bridge ice fishing this year. There's a huge school, like we're talking like 20 a day. They're pulling through the ice.
Breeding under the bridges?
I think supposedly they stopped stocking Champlain with lake trout because the natural breeding is happening again.
Okay, that's good.
And they're loading up. Like they were like literally catching like 10, 20 at a time under the bridge on both sides. So if that opens up, I can go out there with my kayak, launch right there under the bridge. It's no big deal to throw a couple of Rapalas off the side of the kayak and go troll for Lakers. And at that time of year, they're in 6-8 feet of water. They're not down 40, 50 feet anymore. So I might end up going out there.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should get a bunch of the guys together. I mean, anyone who can, and go up there and have a go at it. And I think
is that a multiple day event? Is that how they do that, or is it a single day?
I think it's Saturday, Sunday. Okay. So at least that's how it's shown in here. But it's funny because it shows the start time as being at like 12:30 p.m. and I'm like, that makes no sense.
It doesn't surprise me because they're probably doing a whole big opening ceremony and crap. They might do a whole big
so it's funny because it says it starts at 12 something on the 26th and ends at like 2 or 3 on the 27th. I know. You'd have to actually look it up on Tourney X and check it out.
See, I wouldn't be surprised. The only thing about something like that is I won't be surprised if those tournaments get full. With no Hobie this year, there's going to
They
be a
get full. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm expecting any trail to get completely packed with Hobie not being there, and KBF trail isn't going.
you're gonna see a lot of
Oh,
guys.
and KF is also not going anymore.
Right.
So yeah, I think a lot of people are going to jam pack that. So I got to keep an eye on it. I think I might actually do my because at the moment there's only like one person registered for it, but I think come May, like middle of May, I might actually go ahead and get my registration in, because if that fills up, I mean, what's the max? Like 200 or something like that?
Probably 200.
Yeah.
They're usually limited by boat ramp.
Yeah.
Like Vermont does 100% occupancy. I think New York does a similar thing. See, the thing is, I'm endorsed in both New York and Vermont because I buy a New York license every year, anyways.
Okay. Yep.
So like, and New York does something I wish Vermont would do. New York does a 365 license. So New York license is good for 365 days from the day you buy it. It doesn't end on December 31st like ours.
Mm-hmm.
You could buy a license on December 31st in New York and it's good till next December 31st. Which is something I hate about Vermont. I don't know why they don't just do a full year. They do the stupid calendar year. Because a lot of ice fishing guys get boned by that. Because if they want to ice fish in December, they got to buy another license in January.
All right. So here's what it says on Bassnet or on Tourney X. So number 5 for 25, Lake Champlain Bassmaster Kayak Series, Saturday 12:43 p.m. to Sunday 3:43 p.m. Plattsburgh, New York.
That's a weird time.
I know. That's why I'm like, is that like check-in time or something, or maybe the captain's meeting also?
It might be.
And then they run it on Sunday, like
No, they probably do a partial day on because I think they do. I think they do their events like the boat event where it's like the first day and then the top 50 from the first day move into day 2.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's how they do the kayak one is like it's 200 go in and then the top 50 get sliced out to actually compete in the final day like they do with the Elite Series. Because what's weird, dude, is the Elite Series isn't fishing Champlain this year. I heard
No,
they
no,
removed it.
no.
I think they pissed off the state is what happened.
What, you think they pissed off New York?
So, dude, MLF
Yep.
and Bassmasters and another big trail, I think NPFL, were fucking back to back to back weekends on Champlain. So MLF fished Champlain, left went to St. Lawrence.
Yep.
Bassmasters left St. Lawrence, came to Champlain.
Oh.
And then like MPFL or one of those other little water ones came in right after. So they had 3 weekends in a row.
Ugh. I would
were getting
not want to
pounded.
fish at the end of that third tournament. I would not want to fish on Champlain for like 2 months.
Yeah, they were pounded. That's actually why the Bassmasters guys were having trouble.
Yeah.
Because it had already been beat up before they even got there. So they poorly scheduled that.
Well, so that's what's funny is it blew my mind last year because Seth Feider, who's a huge smallmouth guy, is usually going to be out deep going for smallmouth. He's up there flipping.
Yep.
He's flipping grass for largemouth in the I'm pretty sure that was in the southern part of Champlain. And I'm like, why, that's weird.
He was actually at one point he was fishing the inland sea, which is actually up in the northern side. But matter of fact, he was fishing a bay that me and Bobby Roast Beef were in the following weekend. But yeah, they decided not to fish it this year, and I have a feeling it had to do with the biologists or someone was like, guys, this is like because dude, Champlain, there's a tournament every weekend there.
Yeah. I mean,
there's my opening day in April, there's 4 tournaments on Champlain.
God. No.
The same day, dude. There's 2 or 3 ramps that there's a tournament pretty much every day of the week.
No, thank you.
Bombazine has a Wednesday nighter. every week.
Every week?
Every week, Wednesday night.
Whoa.
And then there's weekend tournaments on top of it.
No thanks. I'll stick to my little ponds and lakes out here.
What's crazy, dude, is Bombazine is so popular that when like Bassmasters comes up here, like Milliken was on it last year.
Yeah.
Like a bunch
Well,
of guys saw
no.
Milliken in Castleton.
So Milliken's been on Bommo.
Brian Latimer did it last year or
Yeah,
the year
Vladimir.
before.
Yep. He's got a buddy that takes him out there, and he freaking hammers down on him too.
Well, what's the funniest thing, dude, and we'll probably actually end this in a minute here, but I'll leave you guys with this is so my wife called me one day. She was coming back from Rutland. And she goes, "Hey, I have a question for you." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I'm following this boat and it's all done up." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "Have you ever heard of Ott Defoe?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yep.
He was up at Chittenden Res.
Oh wow. Oh, a certain Oliver Nye is supposed to be coming through
Really?
this summer. Yep, Big Bass Dreams. I think he's looking to come into Champlain sometime, maybe June or something, June or July. And I was chit chatting with him, and I was like, "Hey, come on over to the eastern side of the state if you got some time. I'll put you on some good fish over here."
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, and that's the thing is like, that's the thing I kind of take for granted being from here
Mm,
is like, like Ott was up there in Champlain just filming. He needed this place because they're not allowed in the lake. They're blacked out during the pre-fish window.
yeah.
So they
Okay.
all come up like a couple weeks early because there's good fishing in general. And
Yep.
then they'll hit places like St. Catherine and Bombazine because they'll get a basic idea of what the fish are doing.
Yeah.
Because to an extent, and this is something that I've learned over my years of experience, is like I can text you and say, "Hey, what are they biting on where you are?"
Hmm.
Because as weird as it is, a lot of the times the same shit they're biting on up by you is what they're biting on down by me, even though
Yep.
we're pretty significant distance. So a lot of those guys will fish similar bodies of water like Bombazine, St. Catherine, places that have both species, have the same types of structure,
Yep.
and then they'll get an idea of where to start when they're practicing. But we'll get guys, like I said, she was following Ott's truck.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to. If Ollie is able to like come up here,
That'd be
I would
cool.
love to stick him on Seymour and see if he can crack some of those 6-7 pounders out there.
Dude, that lake frustrates me because it's so clear that you can see them.
I've never been on a lake that clear. Between
It's
that and Echo, you're talking like 40,
with
50, 60 feet of viz. Like that's like fishing the Great Lakes.
it's actually in my opinion because I fished Ontario a lot. It's clearer than Ontario.
Yeah, I
And
believe it.
it's weird too because like the first time I ever fished it was with Bear, and that's when he caught a landlock by the ramp
Hmm.
on a jerkbait.
Huh.
He was fishing a perch colored jerkbait on grass to a wolf pack of smallmouth, and there was a landlock chilling with the wolf pack of smallmouth, and came up and smashed that jerkbait. Like, and the thing is, that lake is crazy because you'll go down a shoreline and there'll be 10, 12 smallies in a pack cruising. And you're just like, you can just see them. It's almost more frustrating than not knowing they're there because you're like,
Yeah.
you see them and like, I had one I hit in the head with an Ed rig and he wouldn't bite it. Like when they don't want to bite, they don't want to bite, but it's aggravating when you can actually see them because you
Oh,
know
I
they're
know.
there.
I did that on Echo. I saw one, and I could tell that this thing was massive because I put my Ned rig right in front of this thing, so I got a generally pretty good idea how big this fish was.
Yeah.
And I'm just hopping it, and it's a little crawfish, and I'm just hopping it, hopping it, hopping it. He's like,
Nothing
no,
to do with it.
swam over it 3-4 times. I cast in there, same thing. You just swim right over it, and then finally he got sick of it and just turned around and swam away. I'm like,
Yep.
it's a Ned rig. Why are you not eating that?
Yep. Yeah, dude, it was that place. So that's one of the places when I come up for that big Salem event that we should definitely hit up
Mm-hmm.
if there's a ramp. But that's one of the things that I want. I'm coming up there for like 4 days, and that's one of the places I definitely want to try to hit again because
Yep. Well, even if there isn't a ramp, there's got to be somewhere out there that we could probably just throw a kayak in and go with.
To be honest, dude, I would pay some landowner $50 to let me use his dock for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
I thought about doing that down here. There's a couple of lakes that are like lakes that you could fish, but there's no public access to it.
Really?
BB is one of them.
Huh.
There's no state. The only thing you could do is throw your kayak over the guardrail. That's about all you could do.
Yeah.
There's no state. Everything's all private land all the way. It's landlocked by private land.
Oh, I got a place that you could check out when you come up here. Marshfield Reservoir.
I fished that.
I like that. I like the setup.
You do?
I do. Surprisingly, I like the setup of
What?
it. So I went out to the back side of it, which
The end?
yeah. And
That's a haul, dude. I went up there. It's cool down there. That's cool down there.
yeah, I like that. That's what I mean.
Okay, yeah.
That
Okay.
island there, I actually hung out around that island and was fishing in there.
Yeah.
And I just love how it just goes like this and then drops off into like 50 feet of water, and you're like, what? And the smallmouth are just cruising around out there.
Dude, it's all shallow submergent grass on the other end too.
Yeah.
Past that island, it's all super shallow submergent grass, and
Yep.
it's not like milfoil. It's grass. It's like eel.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like
that water lettuce. So it's like smally heaven and pike and
see. I thought about doing a tournament there too.
I
The
mean,
ramp's kind of iffy though.
yeah, the ramp is iffy, but there's pretty decent amount of space. The only downside to it is, when I went, it was towards the end of the year, so the fish were kind of hesitant at biting.
Yep.
I should say the end of the summer, so they were hesitant to bite. And I didn't really get to see too many of them, but when I did find them, they were right where I figured they would be. And I think you could probably run a decent tournament on there. There've been some, so I keep an eye on like the records and stuff.
Yep.
For the angler of the not angler of the year, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
On the Fish and Wildlife site, and there's a couple of kayak anglers who've been pulling in 19s out of there like it's candy.
See, I'm gonna hit that place up a little bit. The
Yep.
one time I fished it a couple of times. Now that place gets busy too.
Yeah, it does.
That
It
place
really
does get hit hard, and it's not fishermen. It's like wreck kayaks and stuff.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, I didn't know what I know now, and there's a lot of lakes where like that's the case. Like, I don't want to say I'm an expert by any means. I don't think there's such a thing really as a bass fishing expert, but the experience and the versatility that I have now compared to then, I think I would be more able to get on fish.
Yep.
I did not do well when I went there, but I didn't know how to, grind a crankbait into the rocks. I didn't know that you need to use this type of bait in this condition or whatever.
Mhm.
So, like, I think that's something that we can definitely go over in another episode for sure. But like, there's a lot of like nuances, once you learn your basic Senko Texas rig, you start specializing in certain things. The problem with doing that is then you don't fish something else like spinnerbait, and then you don't catch anything on it because you don't have any confidence in it.
Yep.
I honestly think I could catch a fish on a spinnerbait pretty easily.
Yeah.
I just need to leave the chatterbait at home.
Yeah, you got to force, or you run side by side.
Yeah.
You run a chatterbait, you run a spinnerbait, and you throw that spinnerbait. Look, throw the chatterbait and see. Okay, yep, they're biting it. All right, now put it down because you know that it's effective. Start throwing the spinnerbait until you start getting bit.
Yeah, and that's what I'm gonna be doing this year with certain baits. Is drop shots another one?
Yeah,
dude, I fucking hate the drop shot. Hate it. Absolutely hate it.
I used it 1 year. After that, I'm like, it's not really my thing. I picked up the Ned rig though, and I'm like, okay, I like this.
So what's funny is I know the only effective technique I've ever figured out with a drop shot is it's not even drop shotting. I've drop shot a small paddle tail, like a 2-inch, like 2.8, but I'll swim it with this drop shot.
Yeah, yep.
like I'll fish it like a drop shot for 30 seconds, and then my
Yep.
ADHD kicks in.
And
But then I slow roll it. But what I do
yep.
is I slow roll it towards the bottom,
I know.
so
I get
that
the same
weight
way.
goes off the bottom. So
Yep.
it makes that bait like all kinds of erratic because that weight causes it to do all weird stuff because it's hitting off of the structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna probably end this right here. We're going on 2 hours now, but I do want to say, guys, there's a little bit of a backstory with Jesse coming on. Is he's going to be filling in? I'm going weekly starting now, with the exception of March 27th. I won't be having a show because I'm actually recording with Bass and Brews to be on their show. So Paul hit me up, and I'm going to be on their show. So I won't be able to record here because I'll be recording an episode with them. So you guys will have to check out that episode to make up for this one. But every Thursday, theoretically, until I run out of people that want to come talk with me, should be here at 8 o'clock going forward. I want to try to be more consistent. Um, Jesse's going to come on and talk technical stuff like this with me. I've got Chris Williams, who also is going to kind of do the same thing with me and get all three of us together.
Yeah.
Janelle is more of a entertainment podcast. We like to talk technical and stuff like that. But this conversation that me and Jesse just had, now imagine that going back and forth in an Instagram feed. And that's how all summer goes. And then I'll be
Yep.
like, hey, the chatterbait. He's like, yeah, but what about the mini? Yeah, but what about the craw trailer? Oh, well, what pound test are you using? And then it just goes and goes and goes and goes. So,
Yep.
And especially with Jesse signing on with some pro staff deals, he's going to want to, talk about their brands and talk about that stuff too. So it's a perfect opportunity for everybody to
Mm-hmm.
get on here and see everything. And honestly, I love talking fishing with people who have the same type of brain as me, because not everybody goes as deep dive as I do. So being able to,
I will go on so many tangents, it's not even funny. We'll go right down that rabbit hole.
it's not easy to keep up with me. So I have a small circle of people
Yep.
that I will bring on here. So yes, essentially Jesse is the third non-co-host co-host. So the running joke is Janelle told me that she'd sign on for like a three episode contract, and then we have to renew it every 3 episodes. Pretty much how she handles that, because she doesn't want to commit to being a full co-host. The reason is because her podcast, her stuff is her actual YouTube is basically based around travel with her bus.
Yeah.
So she doesn't know where she's going to be at any given time. Once she gets everything kind of squared away and finally starts to actually be truly doing it,
Yep.
she's not going to know where she is. So she doesn't want to like commit to an every week thing because she doesn't know where she's going to be within service or able to or whatever. That being said, I've been slowly working my way up to, I have Chris actually would have been here today too, but he's down in New Hampshire doing that New Hampshire Fishing Expo. And Jesse is another person like me that his life is fishing. So the excuse to come on and talk fishing on the internet for an hour is just as exciting as going fishing. So the plan is to have him on as much as possible. Like I said, any week that I don't have Janelle or Chris, or even if I do, we may have Jesse on too.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going like a 2-3 way,
Yep.
4-way on here and get some other guests and do the same thing. I mean,
Absolutely.
so I'm all for it.
Tentatively, guys, next week, don't hold me to this, but I think I have Rudd on. I hit him up earlier. I think he's gonna be on next week. He always has random stuff that can come up, and it's his career, so I can't really fault him if something gets in the way. But it does sound like he's gonna be on next week's episode. And then sometime in April, I think I'm gonna try to get Mikey to come back too. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have some interesting guests for sure.
Heck yeah.
And I'll probably get Paul to come on because I'm going on their podcast. So I'll get the Jabberhammer to come on here and But yeah, guys, we're gonna end it right here. I want to thank you guys for hanging out. We'll be back next week, like I said, either with Rudd or just me and Janelle, and we will probably have Jesse back on the following episode.
I know.
And
down to 40 days. So I'm like, come on, let's go.
we're getting so much closer. By then, we may even be open water. Honestly, 2.5 weeks. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, 2.5 weeks for you, and another. Oh my God, too long for me. Too long.
I'll be sending you some photos of me freezing my ass off in my float bibs trying to catch a stupid bass that doesn't want to bite because it's only 30-degree water.
Ugh.
So,
Yep.
well, yeah, guys, we're gonna end it right here, and I will see you guys next week.
Ooh. All right. Night.